Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: what is a movie you find terrible but critics seem to love? ITT, people conflating movies that are popular with movies critics love. For a while there, Avatar and Marvel movies were the top two answers lol. Who can forget when Avatar topped Sight and Sound's Best of the 2000 list, or when Richard Brody chose Drive Strange as his favorite film of 2016. Edit: nobody here is telling you that you shouldn't like Drive Strange or Avatar. You don't need to justify your love of them to me. That doesn't somehow equate to critics loving them. Avatar has an 83 on Metacritic. Critics did like it a lot. Girl on the Third Floor. I don't understand how this giant piece of shit has 81% on Rotten Tomatoes. Sometimes B-horror movies seem to only get reviews from die-hard horror fanatics, and this pushes their scores way up. Sometimes B-horror movies seem to only get reviews from die-hard horror fanatics, and this pushes their scores way up. 36 total reviews. Yeah, that sounds on the mark. For comparison, Cats had 302 reviews, and Endgame had 505. Just stopped watching about halfway through. That cum shower scene did make me laugh though. I mean, what did he expect? The what scene? I believe it's this clip. It's at 102 of the video. Can't believe it's actually true. Not me but my dad. He absolutely hates Saupisser, but it's got fantastic ratings and a great director. Even after rewatching, he still just doesn't get into it. I'll admit the first time I watched it with him I wasn't huge on it either, but I've rewatched it many times and it's one of my favorite films now. Edit: holy shit, this blew up. I'm glad I'm not crazy for not knowing what exactly to make of the movie. If you hated the movie on your first watch, I recommend rewatching because it seems lots of people changed their minds after it. Aka Willy Wonka and the Apocalypse Train. My absolute favorite fan theory. I'm siding with your dad there. As a matter of fact, I went into this thread expecting to see Saupisser. I really don't get the hype with this movie. It felt very bland to me. Everything was a bit cliché and nothing was as weird or outlandish as people makes it to be. I went into the movie blind, as I don't like spoilers etc. Yet it felt disappointing and almost none of it stuck with me afterwards, so I can't really discuss it too much either. Why did the people get all grossed out when they found out that the rations they'd been eating were made of bugs if they had literally eaten babies before? Shape of Water. Honestly, might have been a good movie to address the way humans treat creatures, but they fucked it up by having them fall in love. Like what the actual fuck? Ah yes, fucking emo. Great movie. Gritty emo asterisk. Spoilers below. What bothered me about The Shape of Water is that it is supposed to be a love story between a woman and fish man, right? So why didn't they show how this relationship turned from her pitying the trapped fish man, to empathizing with him, to becoming friendly, and then falling in love? Instead we got a music montage, then for the rest of the movie we're just supposed to accept yep, they're in love now. Trust us. And I say this as a huge Del Toro fan. More spoilers. They heavily hint that she has some sort of water fetish throughout the movie, in combination with her being some sort of fishwoman herself. Maybe she's attracted to him because he is her species. What bothered me about The Shape of Water is that it is supposed to be a love story between a woman and fish man, right? The scars on her neck were gills. She was a mermaid the whole time. I enjoyed the movie, but the romance felt underdeveloped in a way that undermined pretty much the whole thing. The biggest problem is the fish man barely seems to be more intelligent than a creature. There's a scene where he eats one of the pet cats, and they forgive him because he's basically an animal and wouldn't know better. A few scenes later she fucks it. Some people say well, she loved the fish because he didn't care that she was mute and so didn't see her as deficient. You know what else doesn't care about a person being mute? A dolphin. Yeah, she basically fucked a dolphin with a six-pack. What a weird fucking movie to give an Oscar to. This was my biggest problem. The creature had several mannerisms that literally reminded me of my dog. I did not feel like it had adult intelligence, which just made the main character feel like a creepy predator. American Hustle. One of the most boring movies I have ever watched. American Hustle. Try Kung Fu Hustle instead. The Cantonese subtitles make it. SpongeBob, Sponge Out of Water. Fucking 81% RT score with a 54% audience score. If you want a SpongeBob movie, watch the original 2005 movie. Infinitely better. Everything that came out of SpongeBob following the 2005 movie is garbage. I'm pretty sure the creator and good writers all left after the success. Steven Hillenburg came back to work on this movie, and developed the story with Paul Tibbitt. It's nice that his return was mostly well received, especially in hindsight with his passing a few years later. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. In my opinion, I feel Tom Hanks didn't accurately portray Fred Rogers at all. Rogers was in no way as eccentric as the persona portrayed by Hanks in the film, but was his own breed of human. The Rogers character portrayed by Hanks, especially with the portrayal of violence in a scene of the film set during a live broadcast of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, was in no way the real Mr. Rogers. The documentary Won't You Be My Neighbor was a far better insight into the life of Rogers. I thought it was an okay movie, but I agree that Won't You Be My Neighbor is superior. Part of the problem I had was that Tom Hanks is too recognizable, so it just feels like Tom Hanks dressing up in Fred Rogers clothes. I also felt like the focus on the guy was kind of ham-handed. I was hoping more for a film that made him Mr. Rogers more personable, while the film seemed to try to push hard on deifying him in a way. Won't You Be My Neighbor did a much better job making him a well-rounded person. Till Mr. Rogers had a first name, and it was Fred. Crash. I challenge you to write a more pandering movie. But impossible character arcs and junior high-level storytelling is apparently Oscar-worthy if you spend enough money on bankable actors. Edit. Yes, critics generally liked this movie. I had an assignment back in school to watch Crash. I downloaded the movie and started watching. About 45 minutes in, when James Spader started doing weird sex things, I realized that wasn't the right movie. Would you like a sex metaphor or a nature metaphor? Went into that knowing nothing about it beyond that it was a Best Picture winner. It ended up being the most obvious piece of Oscar bait I've ever seen, but simultaneously it's just so incompetently put together. The script is ridiculous and the characters are basically parodies of stereotypes. But that racist cop saves that lady. It's powerful. Per second. Shakespeare in Love. Yes. This. And why did it win an Academy Award over Saving Private Ryan and Life is Beautiful? Edit. Thank you for the award. Wisty. If you want a more in-depth analysis of Gwyneth's win, you can search for Be Kind Rewind Gwyneth Paltrow on YouTube. Argo. Not because it was necessarily a badly made movie, but because it willfully rewrote real-world history to make America look like the sole heroes. The British and New Zealand embassies did not turn the American embassy workers away. The British embassy took them in, at great risk mind you, but transferred them to the Canadian embassy since they could more easily pass for Canadians, and the British embassy was in a dangerous location already. The New Zealand embassy took similar risks. The actual Americans who were rescued made extensive comments at the time stating displeasure over how the actual situation was depicted, since it was, well, bullshit. And don't get me started on U-571. At least that movie was the box office bomb it deserved to be, since it straight up replaced the British Navy who recovered the Enigma machine with the US Navy. They got so much heat over it that they just lazily shoved a disclaimer at the end saying pretty much actually it was the British Navy who captured the machine but oh well to save face. The bloody US wasn't even in the war when the events depicted happened. They freely admit that they could only get film financed if it was the US Navy and not the British Navy. Similarly, Master and Commander Far Side of the World makes no sense the types of ships involved, that is because the enemy ship in the adapted book was American. As you cannot have Americans as the evil guy, they made the ship French but kept the locations/events more or less the same. There's some sad person out there who's gonna use this as a movie recommendation thread. TBH, I might check out Girl on the Third Floor and Ad Astra. Just because I've never seen them. And quarantine's got me going bonkers. Actually Ad Astra catched my attention, even if it's bad it sounds like I might like it. Bohemian Rhapsody, I love Queen but this movie sucks. Rocketman was fucking amazing. Absolutely agree, and I feel it was more a tribute to Field Marshal than an actual accurate portrayal, and with Brian May heavily involved not surprising. I can feel a tad more gentle about it knowing that they just wanted to honor Field Marshal, but I was pretty disappointed in it. On the other hand, Elton John was also very involved in Rocketman, and I loved his defense at the R rating. I didn't live a PG life. Think of it this way, Rocketman was a movie about Elton John from the eyes of Elton John. Bohemian Rhapsody was a movie about Freddie Mercury from the eyes of his bandmates. So you can see the main differences. The critics didn't really love it. Their reception was mixed and not high. The general audience seemed to love it though.